For 27 years, it was the most beautiful machine in the sky. Twice the speed of sound. Flying at 60,000 feet. London to New York in 3.5 hours. While you were still eating your breakfast, Concorde passengers were already landing. In 27 years of commercial service, not a single fatal accident. Not one. Then came July 25, 2000. A piece of metal. The size of your hand. Lying on a runway in Paris. 121 seconds later, the most iconic aircraft ever built was gone forever. 113 people died. The Concorde never fully recovered. And the whole thing started with a mechanic using the wrong type of metal. This is the story of Air France Flight 4590. The crash that didn't just kill 113 people. It killed an entire era of aviation. Before we get into what happened, you need to understand what Concorde was. Because this wasn't just an airplane. This was a statement. Concorde flew at Mach 2, twice the speed of sound. That's 2,179 kilometers per hour. A regular Boeing 747 flies at around 900 kilometers per hour. Concorde was literally more than twice as fast. It first flew in 1969. Same year humans landed on the moon. Coincidence? Maybe. But fitting. Because Concorde felt like the future. At 60,000 feet, Concorde flew so high you could actually see the curvature of the Earth from the windows. Passengers would look out and see the planet curving below them. On a 3.5-hour flight. That's what you paid for. A ticket on Concorde in 2000 cost around $12,000 one way. In today's money, roughly $21,000. One way. London to New York. Your seat was not big. But you arrived before you left. Crossing time zones going west meant you landed earlier than you took off, local time. In 27 years of service, Concorde had carried over 3 million passengers. Prime ministers. Rock stars. Film directors. Royalty. And never, not once, had it killed a single passenger. Until July 25, 2000. When 100 German tourists boarded Air France Flight 4590. Heading to New York. To board a cruise ship. For the holiday of their lives. They never made it to New York. They never made it off the runway. July 25, 2000. Charles de Gaulle Airport. Paris. 4 p.m. Flight 4590 was already running late. Over an hour behind schedule. Why? Because the thrust reverser on engine number 2 needed a last-minute repair. They fixed it in 30 minutes. Good to go. The passengers, 96 Germans, 2 Danes, 1 Austrian, 1 American, were all on board. Most of them were retired couples. This was their dream trip. Paris. New York. A 16-day Caribbean cruise on the MS Deutschland. A trip of a lifetime. The crew was exceptional. Captain Christian Marty, 54 years old, 13,477 flight hours. First Officer Jean Marcotte, 50 years old, 2,698 hours specifically on Concorde. Flight Engineer Gilles Jardinaud, 58 years old, 12,532 total hours. Between the three of them, nearly 40,000 hours in the sky. Air France had only about 30 Concorde pilots in total. It was the most exclusive flying club in the world. Getting assigned to fly Concorde was the pinnacle of a French pilot's career. Now, here's where the problems start stacking up. And in aviation, when problems start stacking? That's when you need to pay attention. Problem 1. The plane was 186.9 tons at takeoff. Maximum allowed was 185 tons. They were already a ton over. Because of extra baggage. Because of the fuel load. Small margins. But margins that mattered. Problem 2. A spacer, a small metal part, was missing from the left landing gear. It had been accidentally left out during maintenance 4 days earlier. Nobody noticed. Problem 3. The wind had shifted just before takeoff. A slight tailwind. The crew wasn't recalculated for it. 3 problems. None of them individually catastrophic. But the 4th problem was already waiting on the runway. And it had been put there by a completely different airline, 5 minutes earlier. 5 minutes before Concorde's takeoff, a Continental Airlines DC-10 had taken off from the same runway, heading to Newark. Routine flight. Nothing unusual. Except during its takeoff roll, a small titanium wear strip fell off the DC-10's engine. 43 centimeters long. About as long as your forearm. 1.4 millimeters thick. Thinner than 2 credit cards stacked together. It landed on runway 26 right. And it just sat there. This strip had been replaced twice in the previous 6 weeks, both times incorrectly. The mechanic in Houston used 90% titanium alloy instead of stainless steel as specified. And it had been drilled incorrectly. A tiny manufacturing error that ended up on a Paris runway. Nobody saw it. There was no runway inspection between the DC-10 and the Concorde. France only required 2 runway inspections per day at the time. 2 per day. Which, in hindsight, seems like not quite enough. At 4:42 p.m., Captain Marty advanced the throttles. 4 Olympus engines, each producing more thrust than a Space Shuttle main engine, roared to full power. Concorde began accelerating down runway 26 right. 24 seconds into the roll, 100 knots. Good. 9 seconds later, V1. The point of no return. No stopping now. And then, at 1,800 meters down the runway, the left wheels rolled over that titanium strip. Tire number 2 exploded. A chunk of rubber, 4.5 kilograms, was launched upward at enormous speed. It hit the underside of the wing so hard it buckled the metal inward, creating a pressure wave inside fuel tank number 5, which was completely full. The tank ruptured. Fuel started pouring out. 200 liters of jet fuel per second, gushing from the wing, finding a spark from the damaged electrical wiring, and igniting into a flame that witnesses described as looking like a mini atomic bomb. From this point, everything that followed took 121 seconds. 1 minute and 61 seconds. That's how long it took for the most legendary aircraft in history to fall from the sky. The plane was already past V1. No stopping. Captain Marty pulled back. Concorde lifted off the runway. It was already on fire. The tower called immediately. ATC Paris, Air France 4590, you have flames. You have flames trailing behind you. Engine 1 and 2, both on the left side, were surging, choking on debris and hot gases. Engine 2 was shut down by the flight engineer. Engine 1 was trying to recover. Barely. The plane climbed. But only to 200 feet. 200 feet. That's about 20 floors of a building. Not nearly enough. The co-pilot tried to retract the landing gear. Couldn't. The explosion had damaged the gear doors. The landing gear stayed down, creating drag, feeding the flame, making everything worse. First Officer Marcotte kept calling out the airspeed. It was too low. 200 knots. They needed 220 to climb. First Officer, speed, speed. First Officer, the gear, it's not retracting. Captain Marty made a decision. Le Bourget. A smaller airport nearby. 1 minute away. Try to make it. First Officer, Le Bourget. Le Bourget. We are trying for Le Bourget. But the fire was eating through the left wing's control surfaces. The plane started rolling left. Uncontrollably. Engine 1, the last engine on the left side, lost all remaining thrust. The roll reached 113 degrees. The nose dropped. The GPWS alarm screamed. GPWS warning, pull up. Pull up. Pull up. At 4:44 and 31 seconds p.m., 121 seconds after the tire exploded, Concorde FBTSC rolled inverted and crashed into the Hotelissimo Hotel in Guinness. Truck driver Willie Corenthin was driving nearby. He later said, "Willie Corenthin, eyewitness, I looked to my left, and there was a Concorde. The wing was on fire. It flew right over my truck. Then it banked and fell onto its wing and crashed right into the hotel." The explosion was described by one witness as looking like a mini atomic bomb. All 100 passengers, all 9 crew, 4 hotel staff, 113 people, gone in 121 seconds. The Hotelissimo was a small 40-room hotel just outside the airport. The kind of place airport staff and budget travelers stayed. Nothing special. Just a hotel. One guest was a British woman named Rachel Brooking, a tour manager. She had just arrived, put her bags down, and called her sister. Concorde came down right on top of the hotel. The building burst into flames instantly. Rachel dropped the phone, ran to the door, and opened it to a wall of fire. She survived. Somehow. She was initially reported dead. Her family were told she was gone. She walked out of the flames. She later told reporters, "I don't want to make myself a heroine. I was just lucky." 4 hotel staff were not lucky. The Hotelissimo burned to the ground. Red and white traffic cones marked what remained of the victims across the field. 113 cones. 113 lives. The investigation pointed straight at Continental Airlines. That titanium strip, incorrectly manufactured, incorrectly installed, had fallen off their DC-10. French courts convicted Continental Airlines of involuntary manslaughter in 2010.
Continental appealed. In 2012, the criminal conviction was overturned, but the civil liability remained. Continental, by then merged with United Airlines, still had to pay compensation. Air France had already paid €100 million to victims' families. The titanium strip that caused the crash weighed less than 500 grams. Half a kilogram. That's lighter than a bottle of water. And it ended the Concorde era. But investigators also found that Air France wasn't blameless. The missing spacer from the landing gear. The overweight takeoff. The tailwind nobody recalculated. A chain of small errors. No single one fatal. All of them together, catastrophic. The investigators concluded, the pilots could not have saved the aircraft. From the moment that tire exploded past V1, there was no path to survival. Not with 2 engines gone. Not with an unretractable gear feeding the fire. Not with 200 liters of fuel burning per second. They did everything right. And it wasn't enough. The entire Concorde fleet was grounded immediately after the crash. Both Air France and British Airways. All of them. Gone from the skies. For over a year, engineers worked on fixes. Kevlar lining inside the fuel tanks, so tire debris couldn't rupture them. New burst-resistant Michelin tires. Rewired landing gear electrics. £17 million of modifications. On November 7, 2001, Concorde returned to service. Passengers came back. The dream wasn't dead. Not yet. But then September 11th happened. 6 weeks after Concorde's return. Aviation took a hit worldwide. Concorde's already thin passenger numbers collapsed. At $12,000 a ticket, in a world suddenly terrified of flying, nobody was buying. British Airways claimed to make £30 million profit per year from Concorde before the crash. After the 9th of November, those numbers never recovered. Air France had been losing money on Concorde for years. It had kept flying as a matter of national pride. Air France retired its Concordes in May 2003. British Airways, the last operator, flew its final Concorde on October 24, 2003. Thousands of people lined the streets of Bristol to watch it land for the last time. Some were crying. The age of supersonic passenger travel was over, and it hasn't come back since. A titanium strip, the size of your forearm, left on a runway by a mechanic who used the wrong alloy. 121 seconds. And the most beautiful aircraft ever built never flew again. 100 German tourists who just wanted to go on a cruise. 9 French crew members who were the best at what they did. 4 hotel staff who were just doing their jobs. 113 people, all gone before dinner time on a Tuesday. And 1 woman, Rachel Brooking, who opened a door into a wall of fire and walked out alive. She said she wasn't a heroine. Just lucky. Maybe. But sometimes luck is the only thing standing between a story and a tragedy. Today, engineers are working on the next generation of supersonic aircraft. Boom Supersonic. Spike Aerospace. The dream isn't dead, just sleeping. But every single one of those engineers knows about July 25, 2000. Every single one knows about that titanium strip. Because you don't build the future without learning from the past. If this story moved you, subscribe. Every week we cover the real stories behind aviation's most extraordinary moments. And drop a comment. Do you think supersonic passenger travel will ever come back? I genuinely want to know what you think. See you in the next one.